Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines here. With more banks is collapsing and being downgraded and crypto being demonized all across the planet. What is going on? Well, I tell you what, we're going to hear from Brian Brooks, and I'm going to play you a clip from David Schwartz. I believe we may be at an inflection point where we actually see adoption happening faster than you could ever imagine. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter for exclusive content. Good morning, everybody. $1.12 trillion market cap for cryptocurrency. It's off by 0.4%. Right now, Bitcoin is 24,900 plus. It's up 14.8% on the 7-day. Ethereum 1659 and change, and it's up 8.1 on the 7-day. Tether market cap 74.5 billion plus. We've heard nothing about all the drama that's been with Tether through all of these collapses and runs on the banks. The USDC losing its peg. We've heard nothing about Tether. Keep your eyes peeled. 36 cents for XRP. It is off by 6.7% on the 7-day. Let's get started right here. It is glint, ladies and gentlemen. I tell you about this because we know what is happening with the banks collapsing all around us. Yesterday, the price of gold in the British pound reached an all-time high in light of the SVB collapse and the developing banking crisis. Glint offers allocated gold held safe in independent Brink's vault in Switzerland, insured by Lloyd's of London. Gold that you can save, send, and actually spend using the all-new Glint app and MasterCard. What are you waiting for? I don't know of a more perfect time to really sit down and check out this product than right now. And the link is underneath the video for you to do it. Check out my sponsor. This right here came out. Take a listen to this. Shout out to S.A. Pete for this.
We begin with a Fox News alert. Dow futures are down by more than 500 points as the stock market goes through wild swings following the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank and the Signature Bank.
Credit Suisse not helping matters. Its stock was down more than 20% in pre-market trading, which was halted over the drastic drop.
The steep decline in the Swiss bank coming after Saudi National Bank, one of their biggest investors, said they would not provide any further financial assistance. Investor confidence in banks currently is low. Even financial giants like JP Morgan and others are down in the pre-market trading since the Silicon Valley collapse.
Well, look, that is true. And I tell you, what we see is more pain and bailout coming. And what has happened here is we've seen now the central bank has come in to bail out $50 billion worth of liquidity here provided to Credit Suisse from the Swiss central bank. That's what we're dealing with, ladies and gentlemen. And obviously, this means that there is a split camp amongst the banking world. You have some that are shunning crypto firms because of the regulatory pressure mounting. And then you have some big banks that keep their distance. But some of the big banks are still willing to partner with crypto firms, according to Eleanor Terrett. Shout out to her. And right here you see, this is Ashish Birla opining on the idea and the thought of what's happened here. And let me get this page to load. We love advertisements, right? We just do. And let me get this to load here. 1 second. Let me click off all the ads and get this lined up. Here it is right here. If the government properly regulated crypto, larger banks would be more open to providing them with services, said tech investor and advisor Ashish Birla, as we know, formerly of RippleNet and now a board member of Ripple. As such, they are forced to use smaller banks and fewer resources or look to offshore options. However, some U.S. banks are looking to fill the growing void. Prov Bank, Western Alliance, Bridge Bank are still offering their services to stranded crypto victims. BNY Mellon continues to offer services on a case-by-case basis to digital asset firms. So we'll keep our eyes peeled there, but it does look like everybody's driving the money into the banks, and they certainly are. Bank of America, just shout out to Molly Elmore, give her a follow here. Bank of America mopped up more than $15 billion in new deposits in a matter of days. That's people looking for high ground in this crypto world, and that is what's happening. The money's being driven to the big players of the industry, and as Molly highlights here, money being moved to SIFI banks, which is systemically important financial institutions or infrastructure. Remember what happens if a SIFI bank fails post Dodd-Frank Act, and it is clear that it is too big to fail. That's what that means, and that's why the money is flooding into there to reinforce that understanding and everything else about the state of crypto and regulations. It's none other than Brian Brooks himself. Take a listen to this.
Do you think anything will further happen with the bank situation, with the crypto-friendly bank situation in the United States? Do you think everyone eventually will just leave the U.S.? Or what of the situation of on and off ramps in the United States for banks and crypto institutions?
Yeah, I mean, look, my guess is that when you have demand that is as strong as it is, there will always be smaller banks that are willing to step up and try to risk manage this. So, you get rid of Signature Bank and you have Customers Bank, and you get rid of Customers Bank and then you have Coastal Com. I mean, there's always somebody who's going to serve this because there's a demand, and crypto's not unlawful. The question then becomes, how quickly and how committedly is the administration going to go after every single last one of those, and how will they answer to the 50 million customers who are looking for fiat on and off ramps? My belief is that they're trying to send a signal that will eventually choke this off. That's again what Operation Choke Point was. But you can't kill all of the animals in the zoo at some point. So my belief is there will always be somebody serving it. It'd be better if larger banks with better risk management were serving the sector. But if they don't, there will be somebody doing that. And hopefully over time, as the asset class matures, people will get comfortable with that.
And he's laying it down that, the big banks, they're going to do it the right way. It's driving the money back into the big banks. But this goes to the point that DAI made here, and I want to read it to you. The first new asset class since the introduction of bonds. The asset class to swallow all asset classes, think tokenization, is being transferred to the mega banks. They shouldn't call it Operation Choke Point. It should be called Operation Incumbent Point. And I think he nails it. And I say it too. Don't think crypto, think tokenization of everything else. It doesn't matter if the XRP ledger is a decentralized exchange if no one is connected to it. We are reaching an inflection point where a G7, G20 government will see the value in adopting something like the XRP ledger and give it all the confidence for the world to use. Remember, military and government adoption is what we need to see for mass adoption. And why do we know that? Well, we know that because I'm about to show you. Daniela Camboni here from Stansberry Research. Shout out to you, Daniela. Federal Reserve to launch instant payment service FedNow in July. Now, this is amazing because we know what it's going to do, right? The Federal Reserve said Wednesday it will launch the long-awaited instant payment service. And let me just get to a few things about this because most of us know what's going on here. But I just want to read the ability to launch and reflect its milestone to help financial institutions serve customers instant payments to better support nearly every aspect of our economy. That's a key factor there. The other thing I wanted to bring up out of this was, where is it here in 1 second? It's this section right here. Starting in the first week of April, the Fed will begin formally certifying banks to launch the service. Early adopters will have to conduct customer testing informed by feedback from the FedNow pilot program to prepare for sending live transactions through the system. The Fed maintains making funds immediately available will help Americans living paycheck to paycheck for small businesses with cash flow constraints by avoiding late payment fees and freeing up working capital to finance growth. Freeing up working capital. Analysts say FedNow could cut cost or cut demand for payday loans as consumers won't have to wait for a check to clear. For businesses, there could also be an upside for better paying suppliers on time, and businesses could embrace it at a less costly and more certain way to accept consumer payments. That's what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very big deal. And I say, don't forget about Ripple being a part of the U.S. Faster Payments Council. We know this for many years now, but they just had the study that came out and evaluated everything. Then let us not forget here what Cowboy Crypto shares with us. Circle, Cross River, Coinbase Connection, FedNow. The payment program FedNow is tapping 91 different firms for payment processing, and many openly use the blockchain tech of Ripple to give a dynamic facelift to the existing financial system. Everybody, is this on? Is this on? I just want to make sure. You know, the connections are deep. Ripple brings real-time payments to the United States. These are all little reminders here. Reminder that Circle, USDC, Cross River Bank, Ripple, Coinbase, they're all connected too, to add to the FedNow experience and information. I offer this because it doesn't mean XRP. FedNow is about organizing domestic liquidity, freeing up capital. The system works really good the way they explain it. XRP doesn't need to be used unless it's applicable. If it's dollar to dollar, why use it? But that doesn't mean that they're not going to use a whole host of other Ripple suite of products. They could use RippleNet and never use on-demand liquidity and actually use XRP. And that's fine, because organizing domestic liquidity through FedNow can lead to the opportunity for making large value cross-border payments. Now, if there was just only a way to find a bridge asset out there that could help them with that, I'm sure they'll think of something. Ripple sitting right at the table. You don't think it'll dawn on them to mention, hey, by the way, you know, we got this XRP here now that you got this FedNow thing up and humming. All the domestic liquidity organized, working very efficiently. We could really tap into that now that that's been organized for large cross-border payments and consistency. And then I bring you this. I want to play you this right here is David Schwartz and a clip that I covered back in October of last year. Let's say about 5-6 months ago here we're looking at. And what's interesting about this is the way David explains the top-down approach, and think about what we're seeing in this moment today. Banks are being crippled, and we didn't know this in October. But I want you to listen to a clip of him and the way I'm talking about it, and think about the moment we're in today, and ask yourself if we're not at an inflection point where we could be seeing not only the bottom up, which has been crypto's history, grassroots, but the top down, the way the internet was adopted first by governments and military first. Take a listen.
I love to hear about the founding days of Ripple.
Yeah, at that time, so that was probably mid to late 2011, sort of two cracks were emerging in the Bitcoin narrative, such as it was at the time. Obviously, the narrative was, most of the people were technical enthusiasts. They were very interested in the technological end, and they weren't as savvy about, how to drive adoption. The only strategy that anyone could think of was a grassroots strategy. And that's not how the internet got adopted, right? The internet was adopted by government and military first. So it's a and that's not how the internet got adopted, right? The internet was adopted by government and military first. That's a very, very key point. We've yet to see that here at home. And I've said it before, and I believe that the case was a weapon used early on by people who had insights that others did not. And I also believe that this case had to happen, regardless of people's greed, knowing it had to happen as well, in my opinion. They knew that they had to have clarity before the government could even do such a thing.
And isn't it true that if you're going to start out and you're looking for the decision that FinCEN made that XRP is in fact a currency, virtual currency, then isn't it really true that you need the government to really adopt this thing so it can truly become regarded as money and at least backed by whatever you're going to put on the ledger, I would imagine. Take a listen again.
Very earliest focus, and I think that kind of matured between 2011 and 2014, this kind of focus of like, we really need to solve payments. Like, and if you think about any other use case, you think about an NFT. Well, I want to buy it and I want to sell it. You know, think about a loan. Well, I want to pay the loan back. And I want to get paid like the amount of money I borrowed. Like all of these other use cases need great payments. And so we just sort of laser focused in on payments. And I think the other thing that we did different from the very earliest days was everybody else, including us in the beginning, had this ground up strategy. Like if you don't have a strategy, your strategy is get everybody to use the thing that I think is great. And I think a lot of companies are still pursuing that. But I think there's also a sort of top down strategy. And that's kind of what the internet did. Like the internet got governments to adopt it. They got universities. They got sort of big players. And so we decided, what are the biggest players? They're banks. And we went after banks. We probably should have aimed a little bit lower than that. The problem with banks is obviously like banks are a big deal. Like any crypto partnership with a bank is a big deal. But the problem is banks are slow moving. And they're not, and especially, and the bigger they are, the less interested they are in innovation.
Because they're king of the hill. They don't want to change because the system is in place, right? He who has the gold makes the rules. They are the central monopolists. But if the government adopts the technology, it's going to pave the way for the banks, and it only takes two. Remember Bob Way, only takes two. Two banks start really doing it and getting that clarity so they can do it. It's going to be a first mover advantage market.
Biggest banks talk about how important innovation is, but really, if they could push pause on technology, they would. Why right? Mm-hmm. Right? You know, why would they not want to freeze time where they're now like right at the top? And so aiming just a little bit lower, you have people, you have companies like non-bank financial institutions, payment service providers. These are companies that have the resources to make a big difference. Like scoring one of them using a cryptocurrency-based system matters. You know, it's not like, you know, you don't have to get thousands and thousands of them.
I mean, every year there's just so much more happening, right?
And I just want to add to that, you know, this next crisis, which I believe is on the edge of unfolding here, isn't going to be a real estate crisis like the last one. It's going to be a monetary problem. It's going to be a monetary crisis. And that's where the banks lose their leverage to be so stubborn. Because this time around, it'll be them that needs the hand. And aren't we in that moment today, ladies and gentlemen? Not financial advice from me or anyone else. We're river dancing on top of this thing. We're just waiting for one to fall, because when one falls, two falls. And when two falls, they all fall. There's going to come a point where it dawns on a banking institution that being able to eliminate pre-funding accounts and releasing that dormant capital and using something like XRP at some point, and I'm not suggesting FedNow does. I'm suggesting FedNow organizes the domestic liquidity to be able to call on deep, large value cross-border payments in the future. But for me, where we are today, this is a very, very important point to make and understand for all of us, because where we are today is a monetary crisis. It is a liquidity crisis, and it is at the banking doorstep. And who does the central banks turn around and borrow from? No one. They can only print money, and confidence is dwindling by the day. The only thing left to do is to rely on a new form of money that allows you to unlock your old money. Not financial advice from me or anyone else, just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.